Sometimes I just can't do this no more. Then I feel your hand touch mine. It's like I'm just unloving you all. Then I hear your words so kind. Stuck in my heart turns to sand. Then alone I make my bed. I'm tired of all this hoping for more. Then I see you at my door.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Indie Plug, formed in the south inner city of Dublin, in the shadows of the Guinness brewery. I'm talking to both Richard and Owen from the indie pop rock band Hawke. How are you guys?
How are you, man? We're good.
I'm good, thank you. As a Guinness lover myself, I have to ask, is the Guinness served in Ireland actually better in Ireland?
Do you know what, right? It's not even a question. Like, I actually wouldn't consider Guinness outside of Ireland Guinness, to be honest. You need to get a proper Guinness from in and around the storehouse, and I'm telling you now, it'll change your mind about everything.
Well, I just feel like so embarrassed because I'm just drinking this Australian stuff, and it's no Guinness, I'll tell you that. 120 a can though, like, come on.
I'm quite surprised about that because everyone says, oh, you've got to try it in Ireland before you can make an opinion.
No, it is legitimately better. Like,
Yeah,
it's
actually,
like a creamier texture. So I don't want to sound like a.
And my actual my local is like the closest pub to the factory, and as the tail goes, they have the pipes the taps come straight from the storehouse. But I don't know how true that is. But shout out to Harkin's Bar, best pint of Guinness in Dublin.
I'm gonna have to put that on the list.
Yeah.
Guinness or not, Dublin is a great city. What are some of your earliest music memories growing up in and around Ireland's capital?
Going definitely 100. I was only thinking about this the other day. Sorry, I kind of just jumped in there. But so when I was 10, my dad used to live away, and we only see him like once a year. So he came back anyway to Ireland, and I had seen in Super Value, which is like our version of Tesco, somebody was selling, like, they've written it down in a little card, I'm selling 6 tickets to the Rolling Stones in Slane Castle, which is a little bit above Dublin. And I didn't even think it was a chance of going, but I said it to my dad when he came over. I said, look, there's Rolling Stones tickets, just a joke. Next thing, he didn't say nothing about it, but the next day he'd bought them, like, you know what I mean? And like, we didn't have a ton of money, but that was like expensive tickets, and we went up anyways to the shows. My first time, like 10 or 11 years old, and it was, the first few chords of Start Me Up. I don't know if you know the Stones, but like a lot of people know that one. But anyways, it opens up and it just like fireworks, and then it was just like, it's in my memory forever. It's just like the best music moment, and it's just unbelievable. I started crying the other day thinking about it. No, it's classic.
And mine probably would have been I would have been around that age as well, and there's a famous enough venue close to where I live. It's actually close to the factory as well. It's called Vicar Street, and there was a band it's a really famous Irish band called Aslan. I'm not sure if you would have heard of them. They mainly kept to Ireland. And yeah, that was my first gig. I went with my sister, and I remember just looking at him thinking he was the coolest person in the world. Still kind of do, but yeah, that was my first introduction to music. I feel like, yeah, live music anyways.
Well, we are going to get on to Aslan in the future for obvious reasons. But also some great bands have come out of Dublin, with perhaps most notable U2 as well as U2. Yeah.
Very good. That was actually really good.
Along with them, more recently, we've seen the emergence of Fontaines, which is probably currently my favourite band. Would you say other Dublin musicians have shaped your own band?
Well, Owen is definitely a big fan of U2. Probably a little bit of a stalker fan at one point, but they definitely have an influence, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I suppose. Aslan as well, who I just mentioned, they're definitely a big influence. Yeah, I feel like, Aslan and U2 would probably be the biggest.
Yeah, like I was having an argument with a fella at this point, because we were talking about, like, he was just basically saying U2 are shite, and I was saying, no, what you don't realise is that even if you think they're shite, which I don't, but if you think they're shite, you have to at least acknowledge that every single before U2, it was like Irish popular music was like the Dubliners, you know, Fiddly D, like kind of did a banjo and bagpipe, you know what I mean? And then U2 came along and they just made it cool, like to, you know, be an Irish paddy. Like,
oh, don't say the Dubliners wasn't cool.
No, the Dubliners were cool. No, they were cool, 100%. Like, yeah, my dad would kill me if I said otherwise. But yeah, U2, like, seriously were just, they paved the way, and they were so different at the time. And just anything else that was out there. And
they put Irish music on the map.
So they put it on that, and so you can't be from Ireland without saying, I mean, obviously, if you're like a rapper or something, I don't know how that translates. But for us, 100%, they had a big effect on our band, just from virtue of them doing what they did.
Yeah, I mean, whether people like them or not, they've made a success out of music, so you can't fault them for that.
Yeah, and I do get where a lot of the criticism comes from. Like, just because you mentioned, like, some people, there is a certain like subsection of people that just hate them. But they're actually like, there's a certain element of truth. Okay, they sort of went to a certain type of music, and then Bono is, you know, sometimes he can talk a lot, but overall, I think like I'm rambling, but I fucking love them.
And both my parents can agree with you on that one.
Yeah, well, that's it. I was always a fan, so there.
In 2019, you formed your own band, which you called Hawke. Is there a story behind the name?
I wish there was, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because but not not that I was aware of until a couple of months later. Like,
yeah, no, there wasn't. We were actually initially going to call ourselves Hyphens, and I don't know why we didn't go with that one, but basically, one of the days we were just thinking of names. It was just taking a long time, and then we just said Hawke, right? And we went with that. And then it was like 2 or 3 months later, I was looking through like some songs on my phone, and I came across a song called Hawk Moon 269, I think, and it's like a back catalog U2 song. So I swear we're not that influenced by them, but like, yeah, that seems to have been where there could have been a subconscious thing, but it could have come from anything. Like, I think there's a beer called Hawks, so could have
actually, I tasted that. It's like a craft beer. It's not great.
Yeah.
And how did you guys meet and form the band?
Yeah, so we know each other probably about 6 years ago now. Like, both of our upbringings would be completely different. I'm from inner city of Dublin, and then Owen is from more of a countryside thing. So we would both be like, would have had completely different upbringings, and Owen moved around a lot and stuff as well. But it was like about 6 years ago we met, and it was just like the Irish music scene is quite small. So starting out and like being involved in different projects in music, it's you kind of know of or know someone who knows of pretty much everybody, I suppose. And we worked on different projects together, and then we were working together for a couple of years, and then we decided to start Hawke, which was last March, I think. So yeah, the rest has been history.
Well, when I was doing my research into your band and this episode, came apparent quite quickly was what fast start you had. Within 2 months, you had bagged yourself recording time at the famed Abbey Road studio and Metropolis studio in London. How did that come about?
To be honest, I think the Irish charm might have been a bit of help. We were at a night out in London, and we bumped into 2 Italian lads, and we were telling them we were involved in music and stuff, and they were the same, and they were saying they were producers and they were working in Abbey Road, and we kind of had a few drinks on us, and we were just buzzing off and saying, yeah, do you want to get us in now, and we get something down there? And it turns out we just had a lot of similar musical interests, and they were like, we got on really well with them and stuff as well. So they were, I think, just being polite, just saying, oh yeah, send us in a couple of demos and see what, like, we'll have a listen anyways. So we sent stuff in, woke up the next morning hungover, sent in a couple of, I think just 1 or 2 demos, 2 demos I think it was. And they liked it, and they had a bit of free time a couple of weeks later and called us in. We were actually living over in London at the time. And yeah, they brought us in, and they told us that they'd be giving us like a little tour of Abbey Road or whatever. So we were just delighted with that. And then we got in, and we said that we are down in one of the studios, and they were like, have you got any other stuff? And we just bashed out a little tune that we had written, and they were like, do you want to start recording now? And we were like, oh yeah, I didn't really we weren't like mentally prepared, I suppose, but that was probably a good thing.
Mm.
Yeah, we started recording during then.
And it was the same with Metropolis, because we went in there. I think it was a month or two later, and obviously, like we were rocking into this massive studio. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Metropolis, but it's in like an old power station, and it's so like imposing. You walk in and it's just like huge, and like we were like probably off of like a €5 Ryanair flight that morning, or a €10 Ryanair flight, and then we actually noticed in the visitor book that day at the same time as us was, I think, Elton John and Sam Fender, and we were like, how the fuck do we get in here? You know. So yeah, that was pretty good.
Well, Abbey Road is perhaps most famous place anyone could record music.
Yeah.
Beatles have recorded countless songs and albums there. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon was recorded there. Radiohead's The Bends was recorded there. The opportunity must have been surreal, right?
Oh, it was like, it's musical mecca. Like, it was just pure emotional. I don't know what it was like for you, but yeah, I mean, at one point, you know, if you know, like any of, I'm just thinking back of, you know, George Martin was initially, when the Beatles came to Abbey Road Studios, they made them go around. They were made to go around the side entrance, like the tradesman's entrance, because at that time, like, obviously, it wasn't how it is today, and the musicians weren't seen as being very respected, you know, or at least the artists. And I asked to go to the bathroom during our session in one of our sessions in Abbey Road, and I was sent around the tradesman's entrance, which was just so cool in itself. But then I went into the bathroom, and on my way out, I'm like walking through this corridor and just coming outside, and I see some guy walking towards me. I'm like, I know that guy. And I got a little bit closer to him. It was Nile Rodgers, and he was like, "Hey," and I was like, just said nothing, just kept walking. You know, it was just such a cool experience. Yeah.
Well, that does sound quite incredible. Do you feel that the music you went into the studio to record had to be even better because of the place?
Yeah, I felt something in the air anyway. I don't know about you, but I felt like whatever it was about that place was just like seeping into, even you're just recording a guitar part. It was the best guitar part you recorded.
Yeah, I feel like a good bit of music or singing anyways is quite mental. Like, a lot of it, you need to be mentally in it, and I feel like what better place to get you mentally into a track that you wrote in your room and you're sitting here recording. What better place to be mentally in it than Abbey Road? So I feel like it really does help a lot with with the mental side of things that you can't really, like, money can't buy, or like technology can't create, you know what I mean? So I feel like it really gives you that extra something special that can't really be explained. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, your fast start to life as a band continued as you were chosen out of 500 other artists to support Aslan in Dublin in July of last year. What did you have to do to win that competition?
Yeah, so we just we saw an ad in the paper, and Aslan, as I said, is like really well known in Ireland. Like, anyone in Ireland would tell you about them. They were kind of breaking it just as U2 were, and the lead singer Christy ended up getting addicted to drugs and stuff, and the band broke up for a while and blah blah blah. And U2 ended up blowing up, and then Aslan kind of got back together. And both, like, U2 have a lot of respect for Aslans, and they're very respected in Ireland and really loved, especially from my ends in Dublin. And so we saw an ad in the paper. They were going to be playing a gig at this outdoor venue, which is only like 10 minutes from where I live as well, and it's a really well-known place in Dublin. It was going to be in the summer. They were going to be picking an up-and-coming band and giving them a chance of a support slot, and they're very about that. They're very about helping up-and-coming musicians as well. So we were like, sure, why not? We just sent in a video of us playing live, just a little live recording, and yeah, we actually forgot about it, and a couple of weeks later, Alan rings me and was like, I'm just letting you know, Aslan's manager just got on and said, like, yeah, we have that slot. And I half forgot. I remembered when he said it, but then I was like, shut up, stop messing. Like, I was actually in a hurry. I remember I was getting changed to leave, like getting dressed or whatever. And Owen was like, no, seriously, like, they actually, and I was like, will you give it over messing? I'm in a hurry. What you actually want? Like, what you ringing me for? but yeah, it was that, and then from then on, any like TV interview or radio interview or anything that they were like plugging us and giving us a message afterwards to say, look, we're at to tell this producer, this interviewer about you, get onto them, they know who you are now, like get onto them and shoot them a little message, like, so it really did help us in Dublin. It was good to like kick off the band having something that like we knew. I don't know, it was a good bit of confidence, like, to show for somebody that we respected so much to have belief in us, I suppose.
Yeah. So, like, as I said, just that one song that we sent in, you know, it's been such a great ride since then.
It's funny because it was actually the same song that we played for the lads in Abbey Road, and then we recorded there and then. But what was funny about it was just a couple of months before that, we sent it off to this fella who we know, who's like a well-respected manager in music, and he'd be kind of a friend. We'd know of him, like, and he asked us to send us over a couple of songs, and that was one of the ones we sent over. And he was kind of like, nah, I wouldn't rate it really, like, just being honest, like, bit yeah, very straight up, like. And at that point we had already sent the demo into the lads in Abbey Road, and a couple of months before that we had already entered it into that competition. So yeah, like, if we had have just gone off what he said, if the competition was going to be after the conversation we had with him, it probably would have affected our decision on the song. So it's mad, like, some people can probably pick up something from a song, and other people could, like, it could just completely go over their head, like. It was interesting.
And when you finally got to that gig, how did it feel to be supporting such a big artist?
Yeah, to be honest, it was just so surreal for me. Like, I just, like, literally their biggest song is my ma's ringtone. Literally, like, and all the people around where I live are massive fans.
It's so hard to, like, describe, because we often try to say that to people.
Yeah,
like, it's I don't know what it'd be like, but maybe the Wombats up wherever. No, you like Arctic Monkeys. Are they from like Sheffield? Yeah. So it's similar to that, and it's like,
yeah, they're like really gods in Dublin, and
yeah, they're more liked than U2, because like everyone's like, fuck U2, but like they're like, oh, yeah. Sorry,
but there a lot of people that I knew, like hundreds of people that I knew before we had won the competition, had tickets to go anyways and go every year. I've gone a couple of years in a row to see them. My family were considering going and stuff, and so going out, I knew there was going to be like loads of people who already knew of us anyways. So it was like, it wasn't even a case of like playing to thousands of people who absolutely zero people know who you are, and you have to try win them over. I knew that like the home supporters already there in a way, like, because they're a loud bunch as well that I know who are going. So yeah, it was just about going out and enjoying it, and it definitely did that.
Yeah, and like any big event, like, is just, it's like it's like all time slows down, but it's really fast at the same time. Like, you know, that's why any major gig that we've done just seems to just like time just freezes or something. It's very, very odd. I've never experienced any other feeling like that in any other part of my life. So you sort of go into it, and it's like a culmination of everything that you've sort of put so much time and effort into. And it might be just this one, you know, sport gig, but it's, you know, it's an important moment for you. So it's like, it's great.
Yeah, it's like every time you're carrying like heavy amps or equipment upstairs when it's lashing rain and out, and you're just like, like a
gigs that like people are just
completely
not paying attention. You know, you'd have gigs the on time that just there's not people paying attention, and there's other gigs that are just great, and it's like those moments where the gigs are great just really make it pay off. And Christy, the guy from Aslan, he said that. I remember he actually said that, like, it was a couple of weeks before the actual gig. He was like, you know, it's like you get 23 hours of bullshit and 1 hour on stage, and it's all fucking worth it for that. And it's so true.
Even before you supported Aslan, you made your UK debut at Hit the North Festival alongside the likes of Tom Grennan and Jake Bugg. How did performing at a festival compare to smaller bar venue-like gigs that you were perhaps?
Well, to be honest, that festival is quite unique in that it's not like it's not like they have this big stage in an open park. It's more like a load of venues around the city host host gigs all that day. So at Hit the North, while it was unreal, it still was like a small venue that we played in. So it wasn't like a big leap. It wasn't too different to playing in just a general bar or club. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, it was a great festival to be on. Got to go and see all the other acts and stuff like that. Yeah, but it wasn't like we were on a big stage or, yeah, it was cool though.
Yeah, it was great.
In the future, would you like to perform at festivals?
Oh, I just can't. Like, I literally cannot. If you told me there was a festival outside that door right now, I'd be gone. You know, it's just too much to be stuck inside. Like, I feel like the big payback on playing music is like, you just get to go outside and actually play it. And now it's like the last 6 months, you know.
And what I love about festivals as well, like playing festivals, is it's like there's a big chance there's going to be acts on it that you really want to see perform anyway. So you can be both a fan and somebody playing at the festival. So you get to play your set, and then hopefully the weather is good, and it's just the best day ever, to be honest. Like even festivals when you're not playing are amazing. So just playing, it's just that extra, like for me, festivals are probably my favorite thing to play.
Yeah, 100%.
Your fast start continued when in July you released your highly anticipated debut single, What About Love? What's the story behind it?
Yeah, so the story behind it was kind of the Aslan thing and the Abbey Road thing. It was the song that seemed to be making moves for us at the beginning, like at the very beginning. So we were like, it kind of makes sense, and we actually released it, I think, the day before we played with Aslan. It just like made complete sense to release it then the day before the Aslan show, and it was the one that we had recorded there, and it just kind of made sense at the time. What it's actually about is,
yeah, I mean, the story behind it, I mean, it started in Richie's bedroom on because it was the very start. It was actually, I think we wrote it just before we started our band anyway, and it started off just like simple, you know, 3-chord riff, but like open D tuning, and we just were really into that sort of that riff, and then it sort of built from there. Lyric wise,
funnily enough, actually, what we went into it thinking, like, and when you listen to it, you wouldn't think this now because we changed it a lot since then. But we started off like, well, I had been playing Hey Jude that day. I was like, had it on repeat, and it's just like one of those songs that just builds, like the anticipation builds and builds and builds, and then the outro is just that big release. And when we first wrote What About Love, that's kind of what was going on in my head, was building something so big that when that sing-alongable outro comes in, it's just such a release. But we ended up changing a lot of it, so it wouldn't really make sense if you listen to it now, because it's not really, it hasn't really got that structure. But that was the kind of that was the influence behind the anthemic, like how anthemic we tried to make it. That's pretty much where What About Love came from.
For anyone who's new to your music, what sets your music apart from the rest?
It's a really good question. There's a lot of music. Well, I think what sets our music apart is, well, we really try. We sort of, something that we felt when we started the band was we wanted to sort of put our attitude towards life. And it's gonna sound very, I don't know the word is, but basically, we tried to put our attitude towards life into our songs, which is that, first of all, we're not fucking here for a long time. Like, we're really not, when you think of it overall. And you know, there's a lot of complaining, and there's a lot of sort of negativity in the world. Sometimes there is, you know, and well, we feel anyway. And what we wanted to just say is, look, you know, life isn't that bad. You know, you can make it work. And that's why, you know, a song like What About Love, Richie's talking about how the inspiration behind for the chorus was like Hey Jude and stuff. It's like sort of like almost a transcendence, like, you know, we're going to get through this, we're going to be fine. Things are a little bit crazy sometimes, but
particularly now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you know, we're going to get there in the end. And so what we like to, I mean, we're not political in our music at all. We took, you know, we thought about that a lot, and, you know, what we could contribute and what we think we can contribute to the world. And I think you agree with this, is that, you know, not everything has to be political, and not everything has to be just complete strife and chaos and you know, sometimes you're even thinking in your own head, you know, think about particular views you have in your life, and sort of it's you know, one side will be arguing with the other, and we all have those like intense sort of shower thoughts all the time and shower debates. But what we wanted to say with our music is that, you know, life's not all about that, and appreciating the goodness of everything, and that's what we try to write about lyrically. And I think that's what we kind of give to the world, is a bit of an escape. I hope we do anyway. That's my opinion.
And then sonically, what we try to do is like music that we both really love would be like big anthemic rock bands from like the 90s and noughties, Brit pop kind of mainstream rock sort of stuff. And we feel like it's not really that mainstream anymore, which is kind of sad. And then so what we try to do is just like take modern atmospheric electronic elements of today and like combine that with our influence, which is that big anthemic rock sound. So yeah, trying to add a new flavor to what we feel unbelievable and is kind of missing nowadays.
Well, your debut single was an easy-flowing karaoke sing-along kind of anthem.
Yeah.
It looks even better live. When you produce your music, do you write to record or write to perform live?
That's a good question.
I think it's 50-50. Yeah, I mean, not like once you play it, once you hear a melody, you do kind of hear it as it would be in a show. So I guess a lot of it is to be performed live. But I don't know. Like, we were only talking about this the other day, and you know, it's so important to. I feel like there's a lot of artists, like, think about, you know, artists that you would hear that would talk about how they want to be able to replicate what they have on stage. When they're actually making the tracks, they think about, how can I do this live? Whereas I really feel anyway that the primary focus should be, you know, getting the ultimate sound that you want to hear on a record, and then worry about what it's going to be like live later. And if it's not as good live,
the energy can make up.
Yeah, the energy can make up for it, and people aren't going to hear like a perfect. Well, at least I don't anyway. They don't go to hear a perfect record, you know. So I think more so, I'd say it's about 60-70% to the record, but live is obviously more.
Yeah, it's actually something that sometimes I'd be leaning a little bit more towards the other side when it comes to keys and stuff. I'm often saying to Owen, we're not going to be able to sing 12 songs at the very tip of our register. We need to bring, but then like his argument back would be, well, let's just get it down for the track, and then we can worry about the live show. When it comes to the live show, it's I suppose, yeah, just making both of them the best they can be when that's what we're doing. So when we're in recording, making it the best recording sound it can be. And
like, quite honestly, we find a little bit of a difficulty, because the problem is, Richie, like, obviously, like, what we're used to, what we would ideally want is to be bouncing around the place. We don't want to be stuck behind our instruments, you know, so much. Whereas I can do that with the guitar. I can go out and do whatever I want, really. But a lot of the tracks called for, like, you know, synth parts and stuff. And then Richie sometimes, if we're writing something, finds that, like, oh, if we're going to be doing this live, it's going to be difficult to. I'm going to be stuck behind the keys the whole time. And he's a really, like, even on a night out, if we were not like completely unband related, if we're on a night out, like, he's up on the table, like, that's what it is, you know. So it's a difficulty. We'll get there.
You also ended your first year very strongly by headlining your first ever tour, where you played in London, Newcastle and Dublin. Can you recall any funny stories that you can tell on the podcast?
To be honest, I think like in a performance sense, that could go wrong went wrong on the tour, but in a good way. Like in Amp went on fire when we were playing.
So our first was that our first gig in London? It was our first gig.
His first
headline gig.
Yeah.
So our first headline gig, right? We're like, everything, we just want it to go well, you know. This is going to be the first time we ever play these songs in front of anybody. And then one of our guitarists.
Well, fortunately, our drummer got stuck on a train between both two platforms, so they wouldn't let him off, and he was sat there for like 2 hours. There was an issue at both platforms; he couldn't go forward or backwards.
So we sound checked without a drummer, which is never a good idea.
Well, we got somebody else in
to bang the drums.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that was problem number one. And then I think he made it like 5 seconds before the start of the gig. And then it was fine. But then we got on stage and like everything's going okay, everything's fine. We get through like 2 or 3 songs. We get like this weird smell, and then there's like a flash of light, and Marco, our guitarist, his amp went on fire. So yeah, that was just crazy.
And then something happened in Newcastle as well. But my pedal fell out of like the actual, what you call it, the actual metal bit out of the pedal fell off.
So he had a sustain pedal on his keyboard, and we had been using it fine for like a year at least anyway. And then on the day of the gig, it decided the actual pedal just fell out
of the sustain. Yeah,
just one of those things that like, it just broke and just couldn't be fixed. And it's just like, how come it's on the most important part?
To be fair, it was like the second last song or something. So
I'd say you were whacking it out of it.
I must have been. Yeah. But I ended up just fucking that behind and just having a little bob.
Not much happened then, just an amp on fire.
And many drunken nights that, I'll probably tell you about another day.
Expected from a band from Dublin. So.
Yeah, you up the Guinness.
Of course, 2020 was never going to be as good as your first, due to extraordinary circumstances. But we did see the release of the COVID diary. It features a mix of messages of support to do with coronavirus, whilst also featuring songs you did not initially intend to release. What was the purpose of this EP? It seems to me that it has a lot of meaning to it.
Yeah, so firstly we wanted to just, I'm trying to crack open a can as I'm
making
talking,
sure
so it wouldn't make noise.
Trying to get in the interval there, you know.
No, but actually, funny enough, right, my uncle died. That's not funny, but my other uncle was like down in the. I
wonder which one.
Just because he just reminded me there. Was down in like the funeral home, and you weren't allowed to drink. Just Dublin and the drinking problem, but you weren't allowed to drink in the funeral home. And he was sitting and he snuck in a couple of cans, like just to have a few cans of his dead brother, like. And he was sitting there, and we were saying to him, "How did you not get caught?" And he was like, "I just coughed every time I was on the jokes." I was like that.
I'm sorry, but that was even funny as well, because one of his uncle was a little bit. He had a bit of he got in the hospital for a day or two recently, and then just there he goes. That was only like a week ago, and he just goes, "Yeah, so my uncle died." I was like, "Yeah, no, not him." What? Yeah, but what were we saying just before? We were talking about.
Oh, the COVID diary. Yeah, so firstly we wanted to just release something. Obviously it was a time of uncertainty. We didn't know how long it was going to be like how long this would last. Still don't. And we had actually gotten a few like we had a weekend of recording in Kent. We had a week-long recording down in South London. We had a couple of writing sessions lined up with like some big writers and stuff like that, and that was to just do a bit of co-writing for other people and see what came of it really. And everything had just been cancelled, and like everybody's in the same boat. Everything's been cancelled for everyone. But we were like, shit, we don't really have too much. Most of the stuff that we had recorded were either demos or else they were tracks that we recorded a while back that we were like, nah, we've probably moved on from then. It's probably not what we would release right now. But as I said, we had everything all the plans to record over the month or two that was coming. So we were kind of stuck, but we were like, right, let's release something. So we recorded 3 tracks just in the gaff upstairs. And as you said, they were kind of like messages of support and just like an introduction to the EP diary kind of thing that we were doing. We kind of didn't really want to call it an EP because it was like, it's not like 5 tracks that we want to release. It's just like a kind of, we're just releasing something, a bit of content that we have, I suppose. And the analogy I gave was, it's like, do you know the way The Lord of the Rings came out and then The Hobbit, was it? Yeah, and then The Hobbit came out, but The Hobbit is from before Lord of the Rings, but it comes out after Lord of the Rings. Well, with the tracks that we released on the COVID diary, they were like tracks that we had recorded before our first single. So it was like when we released them, we hoped that it would give people a bit of a glimpse of the past, of where we came from, kind of. So we wanted to make that clear in the diary as well, was to let people know that if it wasn't for coronavirus, we wouldn't have released these tracks, kind of to say, like, this is not where we're at right now, but this is where we were at if you want to have a listen. And and then there was just in between each song, there was kind of messages of support from people who would come to our shows, messages, because we were locked down in London, still, like we're still in London now. So messages from our family and friends back home, different people who we were planning on working with, different people who were significant in our life at the time, and who we hadn't seen in a while and stuff. And we just asked all of them to send us little voice notes saying whatever they wanted to say, and we just incorporated them into the diary. And yeah, just kind of a little bit of a marker of the coronavirus, like of lockdown, for us to look back on. So yeah, just that was kind of the reason behind it. It wasn't like, oh, here's 5 new songs that we just recorded, this is like where we're at. It was more so, shit, like what's going on. It's kind of like a good representation of everything that's happening right now. It's like, what the fuck really is happening? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I actually don't know. That's kind of what the diary was. That was the mood that we tried to get across, was like uncertainty and little glimpses of the past and messages of sentiment, and just a bit of that. Yeah.
Along with the COVID diary, what other ways have you been using lockdown to progress your band?
We did some Zoom concerts. We did some live streams. We actually started this little thing called, we only ever did 3 of those actually. What was it called? ISO Fest or something?
Yeah.
Isolation Fest or something like that. And we had the COVID sets on it, which I saw you interviewed a couple of weeks ago. So we had a couple of our mates that we met through music. We had them on. It was just an Instagram live stream. We'd have like 4 acts on each night. Come on, sing a tune or 2, have a little chat, and then go off. And we did that for a couple of weeks. Then we had a few Zoom gigs. We did we did other things called like a cover request session. So we started this thing on Instagram where we'd basically put up a question box, and they actually kind of went quite well, and they were fun for us to do. So we've continued to do them, and they're in our highlights on Instagram. You'd be able to find them there. But it's a cover request session. So we'd pick 3 bands that we like. So who was on it? It was like Oasis, the Beatles, and Coldplay or something was one of the weeks. And then there was like different 3 bands each week. And like followers would send in requests of covers from one of those bands that they'd like to see us do. We'd do it, tag them in it. A lot of the time people were sharing it on, which helped us and brought people to our page. And it was a bit of fun for us. It took a couple of hours out of the evening and played out a few bangers.
So what's next for you guys? Is there anything you've got planned for 2020, or are you going to kick on in 2021?
In terms of band stuff, like we are planning, I mean, we've got a tour in October, and so that's sort of we're getting our set ready for that. We are currently, I mean, I'm just literally after getting off the phone with a good friend of ours who's hopefully producing one of our next singles, and we're actually quite excited about one of them. I feel like I am anyway.
Just one of them?
Well, this one in particular, I think is good, and so we're trying to nail down an actual date. He's actually living back in Dublin, so we're trying to get that nailed down with him. So once we're basically talking to a couple of different producers, because we've got one absolute certain single that's coming out, and then we've got 2 others that are cooking up. And as long as as long as the world doesn't explode, as long as Donald Trump or whoever's living in the world doesn't decide to kill us all, we're going to have 2 or 3 more singles for the end of the year. So
sounds good. And I think we'll finish things off with one last question, which we ask all our guests. Why should listeners of this podcast go check out Hawke?
No, don't. It's a terrible idea.
Worst mistake you'll ever make.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. But if you like 2 fucking Irish Egypts that we try to write good tunes and we try to have a bit of crack, and I think that's as good as a reason for you. And other than that, probably back off, because there's nothing else we have.
if you like Guinness and you like music,
Yeah.
go check out Hawke.
No, honestly, that's actually a good. Like, we should use that as a marketing thing. Like, because when people go to our gigs, we just end up like chatting shite the whole
A
night.
few points.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks very much for having us, man.
Thank
Good
you, Rob.
talking to you.